Hello and welcome to Trad Jazz Today. Dan Zeilinger has been a world-traveling trad jazz musician for the past 40 years. Some of his most memorable performances were on the lawn of the Edinburgh Castle, at the Imperial Palace in Japan, as well as TV shows and commercials around the world. Dan has met many people during his career and has spent many hours on and off stage with these musicians, talking about jazz, life, and more. Some are touring musicians, some are theme park warriors, and some are casual musicians who play on weekends with their friends. They all have stories worthy of a movie script, and through these interviews, Dan will be sharing them with you. Now, Dan Zeilinger.
Hi there, this is Dan Zeilinger with Trad Jazz Today. My next guest is somebody who I've known, at least we ran into each other about 30 years ago, probably. Back out and around the desert, and I think we ran into each other at Pismo Beach a couple of times, and maybe somewhere else. But she's the queen of Palm Springs, the songstress of the desert. Yeah, you like that? The songbird of the desert.
Let's go with that. Let's go along with that. I like that.
All right, here she is, Eve Evans, ladies and gentlemen. Yay! And the crowd goes wild.
Wait, clap, 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 clap.
Right.
Okay.
I can put that in after editing. I'll put some applause in for you and some fireworks.
No, don't do the fireworks. The dogs, it sets them off.
Okay. So let's go to the beginning. Where were you born, ma'am?
I was born in 1951 in El Paso, Texas.
Whoa.
Possibly the only place, well, up until a couple of days ago, it was the only place in Texas that had electricity.
What city?
Yeah, El Paso.
Okay, that's
El Paso. El Paso's a one-horse town. They rolled the sidewalks up at 5:30 when I was born, and things progress and people grow and societies grow. So now it's 7:30. They roll the sidewalks up.
I would think they wait for you to get back to roll them out again. But yeah. I do know you went to Rialto High School.
What?
Did you go to Rialto High School?
Eisenhower. Yeah, Eagles. Oh, did I say that? Yeah, we're having a family reunion. Family. It's not really a family. I graduated in the class of '69. And many of my classmates went off to the Vietnam War and didn't return. They did not return it. And so it makes, we've kind of given year by, how class reunions are year by year by year by year. There's not that many of us left, and then COVID took a few also. So yeah. Now we just have one giant reunion up until I think the early 80s or something like that. And we just all get together, but we're Zooming. So this is going to be an event.
Oh my God.
Because even people that didn't want to come, to a physical reunion will now show up, in wigs and masks, and, you can't see that I weigh 500 pounds below, my shoulder blades here. So,
That's why I do this show. So.
You're wrong, is what you are. Okay, go ahead.
Well, I don't know. I've been told I have a great face for radio. So.
You do, and you have a great voice for radio.
Well,
and I should know. I was in radio for many years. You have a great voice for radio.
Well, I just found out that Syncopated Times,
yes,
is going to be mounting a online radio show, and they've asked me to be part of it. So I will be a voice in the air come March 1st.
Excellent. And they need you desperately. They need you.
Well, golly, I'm blushing. You can't tell because of my skin color, but I'm blushing. That's what you get for being half Filipino. But
Stop bragging.
I can tell. I tell you, Eve, when I'm outside for a long time, I can compete with you for skin tone, baby.
Well, there's no competition because you are one of me.
Well, that's true. It's very
Okay.
true.
So don't even start that conversation.
No, you're right. We're all musicians.
You know you're wrong. You're wrong on many levels. Again, that's too.
My wife keeps telling me, so I'm reminded of it daily. Well, great, hon. So you must have been singing from the time the doctor slapped you.
Well, I made my first professional recording at age 3.
There you go.
And it was onto wax, in the studio, and I sang the Lord's Prayer and a cappella, and it played on the radio. It played on the radio for almost 10 years. They used it on the radio for almost 10 years.
Wow.
There was no residuals or pay or anything, but apparently it was good enough intonation wise and diction wise from a 3-year-old, because I sang all the correct words. No, I don't have a copy of it.
Oh, darn.
It has long, it has gone. It's in the minds and hearts of people who heard it. And I can remember the recording session like it was yesterday. But
I can imagine what an angelic voice must have come out of you at that age.
The same voice is still here, by the way.
It was an octave higher?
No, actually it wasn't. It was pre estrogen.
Okay.
It was pre-estrogen, because of course the voice changes with hormonal changes in both men and women. So, but my mother, up until she was in her 50s, had that angelic sound. She sang to us in that little voice, that little girl's voice. And she spoke right here, but she sang to us in that little girl's voice. And it's what taught me to pay attention to intonation, as a young child.
How old were you when you took on piano?
Right about the same age. I copied my mother. My mother played on all the black keys because I could reach them with my little hands. Because they were closer together.
Right.
So she taught me to play. Oh gosh, she taught me to play in G flat or F sharp, depending on, who's buttering your bread at the time, and she taught me to play by ear, so that I could hear that intonation, and I would sit. It was a high boy piano. That's an old term.
Sure.
It was a high boy piano. It was a piano with a grand piano sounding board in it. So I would sit under the piano with my back to the board by the pedals, and I watch her do the pedals, and the music would just be coming through my body. Those are the good old days.
Now, was she your actual teacher also, or did you have a separate piano teacher?
Oh, I had piano teachers starting at age 6.
Every time I have somebody I interview who started early, I ask about the influence of their piano teacher, and if it was a positive one or a negative one.
The first 3 teachers they're okay. They were kind of like, they had the books that they taught you according to the books. Of course, mother had to give me the lecture. Don't jump ahead, just stay with it. But I would have played the whole book in a month's time. When I was allowed to say I'd go ahead because I'm, I'm ADD. I was bored. So I would rush ahead. The first 3 teachers I had they were okay. They were okay. They were okay. They were getting a paycheck. They were okay. My 4th teacher was Frau Binkel,
Oh my.
and I lived in Nuremberg, Germany. And she was the most, when she played, it was like butterflies were touching it was amazing. I loved to watch her play. And of course I could play by ear. So she picked things that she knew I liked, but she would make me read them. Oh, I was mad because I wanted to just play. She made me read to help my eye hand, my eye hand coordination, and to help my brain, help that other side of my brain to develop. She got all that. And I was 12, 13, 14, 15, 16.
So what were you doing? What were you doing in Germany?
I was raised, I'm an Army brat. I was raised
Oh,
in the
me
military.
too. Okay.
Yeah, Dad did 32 years, and we lived in Asia, and we lived in Europe, and we lived in all over the United States. And I wouldn't trade that for anything, but because it helped me not only in my life to get along, it helped me in my studies to understanding other cultures and what information was being given. And ultimately, it helps me to choose material for the audiences that I, entertain all over the world.
Yeah, I found the thing helped me the most with was how to make friends fast, because we would move every 2 years or so.
Yeah, we were 6 years, 64, 63. We were 6 years, almost 6 years in Germany. 5 years, when stuff was happening here that as I look back, that Mom and Dad would want to shield us from, and information. We were in Germany when President Kennedy was killed, and it was a good thing we were. It was a good thing we were there. And for the riots and all of that stuff that happened during the 60s, we were nowhere. I was living in a bubble. I was living in a bubble as you get older, some of the things that were going on around you on the base that, but it seems like our parents back in those days allowed children to be children.
Yes.
And it didn't matter which parent, whose parent it was. They allowed we kids to work our differences and our problems and our socializing. We worked it out by ourselves. And out of it came many, 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 many lifelong friends, that were in the military. It was kind of, I guess they taught us, don't fight your own family. This is your family now.
Yeah.
So we learned to get along,
Now, we were in Turkey the 6 years I was over there, and most of them bases were always on bases, actually. Different bases, though. Sometimes Air Force, sometimes my father was a contractor. And so we had officer status, but he really wasn't, he wasn't in the service at the time. He was in World War II. But I just remember getting back to the United States, and I had no idea of the problems. I didn't know there was racism. I didn't realize I was a dark color.
That's right.
When I met my wife and went to marry her, her father didn't want her to marry me, and I didn't understand any of that because it didn't. For me as a kid, it didn't exist on the bases.
That's right. That's right. And which gives us a whole different perspective of even our world today. How how musically, even musically, uh, jazz. What's that? When
Well,
we were what I mean, unless they played it at home and they didn't call it by name, they called it music.
yeah.
We were exposed to music and different kinds of music. They wouldn't say this is class. They go listen to this or listen to this, or at school, we get a music education, not an education in a specific genre. And even we talk about trad.
I just use that word because it's not cool to say
No, no, no.
Dixieland. No, I'm just saying I use that word in my show title because I instantly got a flack when I wanted to call it a Dixieland interview show.
Yeah, well,
So that's why trad jazz today.
it's I mean, trad jazz today is it's what they sang in the 30s.
It's Miles.
Yes, in 20 years, it's traditional implies, of course, traditional implies it's something that we've built, and come to recognize easily. It doesn't even mean, no, it has expanded to mean what it means today. But to some people who were born in the 20s, it means something else.
Yes.
And it's attached to a different time. And some people don't even want to remember that time. But it was the music that brought us to this. It's the music, that language, the music language, that brought us to the time today. It helped us to survive all of whatever that was, or all of whatever that is. It's the honey that makes you take the medicine. Uh-oh, did I say that? Write that down.
I will. Yeah. It's very profound.
Oh, I don't know that it's so profound. I think we all think that way, especially from our generation, because we play music because we love music.
How old were you when you actually got a hold of jazz?
I was doing big band music, which is now called jazz. I was doing big band when I lived overseas. I had a 23-piece band, and I can only work, when school was out. So at the end of summer till school started, and I was in Barcelona. I had a wonderful manager. He was from Sweden, and he bought a whole nightclub that held about 500 people. And they served food, and it had a beautiful bar and a main stage.
It's a beautiful city.
Yes, and the band was made up of expats, and people who could play. Everybody got along. There were several, there were guys from Turkey, and there were guys from everywhere, and it was all guys. There were no girls in the band. I was a little girl, and the guys did all my arrangements, and they were fun and they were exciting, and they took recordings and transcribed them, from songs I really loved. So I was about 13 and a half. And this was when when it was a monarchy. This is when Spain was a monarchy. And when they went to socialism, of course, we were escorted to the airport.
Yes.
But it was a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful time Oh, it was a wonderful time. And I worked summers only, um, two shows, two shows a night. I worked like a grown up.
Now, were the audiences mostly expat? Or they vocalists too?
Military, military, expat. People came from everywhere. This place was, it was where live in American, English speaking entertainment was. And I'm going to tell you, it, Frank Sinatra, Dean Martin, Sammy Davis Jr., Ella, Sarah, all of those people were highly regarded there. Not only for their, first off, because they were untouchable. You couldn't, see them unless you paid a lot of money. Okay. But you could buy their records, you could buy their recordings, and people had memorized that music, whether they spoke English. It's just the music was the vehicle, okay? And people came to see, it's like a car show. People came to see the vehicle. Many had translated, because people were trying to copy. We're always trying to copy somebody. But to be able to perform the music.
Oh, yeah.
And they were translated to their own language, but it didn't sound the same because you don't have the same vowel structure and the same consonants and the same, you don't have the same phrasing, because sometimes a one syllable word to us is a two syllable word, blah, 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 blah.
I remember I was on a cruise ship once, and they had an Italian band on board, and they had learned all the American songs phonetically. They had no idea what they were saying, and that's kind of what you're talking about in some ways. Yeah,
that's right. So I no, everybody came, and tourists came, and ships pulled in, and everybody got on the bus and came over there to there, and yeah, we. A good living was made for all the whole town, because my manager, God rest his soul, was he was a monk. He had been raised in a monastery.
Oh. And
so his ability to do things like put needles through his cheeks and walk over hot coals and, hypnotize large groups of people and make them jump up and cluck like chickens, and people wanted to see that. They came for the music, and then they saw that, and they got their money's worth, and they went back and told, when we come back next year, we're coming back next year. Okay. So that was what age between singing with opera groups in Germany, opera ensembles, and doing background singers for headliners, in the vocal group I was in there in Germany. That's what I did during the summer.
Were you singing alto in the operatic parts? Sometimes I was a really good tenor singer. Okay.
And they put me in tenor section sometimes is a little bit thin, bit thin. So I sang second alto sometimes, but tenor mostly.
I was curious.
Yeah, I love singing tenor. I love singing tenor. I think their line is sometimes more interesting than the other two.
They're harder to sight read, I can tell you that much.
They're harder to what?
Sight read.
Oh, I kind of got used to reading the bass clef. I really got used to it. It's a mind challenge. It's like eating with your left hand.
Yeah.
Oh, you're not left-handed, are you?
No.
Oh, okay. Just checking.
Okay, so what got you out of Spain?
We came home to the States and lived in Virginia near Dumfries, where the FBI
Mhm.
are trained. And I got into choir, and of course, I had a bunch of other classes, but I got into choir, and um, the teacher, I wanted to audition for a talent show. You know, for God's sake, it's high school. You know, so I wanted to audition for a talent show, and I got into the talent show, but the teacher took me aside and told me um, that I shouldn't endeavor to be a soloist because I just wasn't equipped to be a soloist. I should stick to accompanying the 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 choir, as a pianist or a singing tenor. And I said, oh, okay. She didn't know anything about me. But then again, when I came back to California after that, and the speech teacher told me also at that same school that I I would be okay probably as a grade school teacher, but I would never be a public speaker. I would never be able to be a professor. I would never be able
Because of why?
because I just, I wasn't dynamic enough to be those things. Then I came to California. When I got to California, I had something between a Southern drawl, high Southern drawl, and Cockney, because I'd gone to school and taken several uh, courses when I came home from Spain at Oxford University, and so I liked how they talk, so I just talked like them, and it worked. It worked for me.
Actually, those accents aren't really that far apart. I was talking about this with Sonny Leyland. You know Sonny, piano
Yes,
player?
yeah, yeah. I kind of know him. Yeah.
Well, of course, it's English, and when you hear him sing, you think he's from Texas.
Yes, because it's just a hair off. People from Brooklyn and no, mostly from Brooklyn, they sound more like they're speaking Cockney. Okay, so it wasn't hard for me to.
Right.
People go, what did they say? And it's not a matter of translate. All you have to do is hear. But that's part of being musical because you hear those nuances in tone.
Well, like I said, I grew up with a Filipino mother, and if you've ever spoken with anybody who's really Filipino, it can be as much of a challenge to work out what they're saying. And so, as a kid, my ear just started like you did when you were traveling so much. Your ear starts getting tuned.
That's right.
To be able to listen to whatever comes at you.
That's right. That's right. So we came back to California. A couple of years later, I won the state original oratory speech competition. And
did you send a copy of your winning prize to your teacher back in Virginia?
No, just a picture. And then when I had the opportunity to meet Jester Hairston, rest his soul. He was a really tall black man on Say Amen, the TV show.
Okay.
But he arranged choir. He did choir arrangements for the movies. And I studied while I was still in high school. I studied under him and also under Carmen Dragon.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yes, because I wanted to be, if I couldn't be a soloist, I could be a conductor. I mean, let's just be real,
Here, what the heck?
So I studied under them and went to University of the Pacific up in Stockton, and got my certification from them, completed coursework to be a choral conductor. And I've done that. I finished that at the beginning of my second year at UC Irvine,
Okay.
where I was studying opera.
Have you always been singing gospel all this time?
No,
No, okay. I was wondering. I thought I had seen in one of your biographies that you claim gospel as one of your styles.
well, it is one of my styles. My mother was a minister, and my father, we were in church all the time, Sundays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays for choir rehearsal. So, um, uh, gospel music, hymns, any kind of church. You're in the military. You're either Catholic or Protestant, right? And then there's the other. There's a synagogue and stuff, but they didn't talk about that. You're either Catholic or Protestant.
Sure.
Well, I knew all of the Catholic songs and I knew all of the Protestant songs. Wait, by heart. I knew them all. We didn't go to the Catholic church, but we went to Protestant church. But sometimes I was asked to come and sing, Ave Maria, or some of the other sing and response songs that were in the Catholic church. It rubbed off because I love gospel music, but then I love any kind of religious music. I just love it because it offers worship, and that's what I do even with secular music. I find lyrics that edify and talk about love and talk about encouragement, and you can laugh and have fun with, and it's my form. It's not my form, it is my worship, and I use it that way. Now, if you want to call me a gospel singer, I'm not really a gospel singer. I just happen to know all those songs because they are ingrained in me, and I use them when other music does not.
Sure. As long as you know you use the word transgression or debtor, you should be okay.
Oh no, I repent every morning I repent ahead of time for my transgressions because I already know there's gonna be a couple a day. And I don't want to miss the train because I didn't,
That's one thing being a brass musician is you get to see a whole lot of services for all different manifestations of faith.
That's right. As it should be, because it's music. And I believe what happens is we are healed while sharing with others who want to be healed. So I don't know, it's kind of, and I'm not talking about religion here. I'm just talking about self-awareness and being,
I understand.
And being in the moment, and gratitude for the fact that we go out and blow into an instrument or touch an instrument, and it makes a language that everybody understands.
Well, I think there's a difference between having divine guidance and man-made religion.
Oh, well, they are as far apart, in my estimation, they are as far apart as light and darkness. And it's above my pay grade to say which is which.
I like that pay grade. That's something you get from being around the military so much. But
Well, and musicians who don't get paid. Oh,
There you
please.
go. Now, when you came out to California, where did you head first? At this second time here,
To grandma's house,
which is where?
San Bernardino, the armpit of the nation.
Is that what it says on the city limit sign?
No, San Bernardino is the largest county in the country. Did you know that?
That's the largest high school district, I know.
You know, a lot of very talented people came out of the San Bernardino genre. But my grandparents were farmers and they lived in San Bernardino. My grandfather was a diviner. You know, he was not one of the first, he was one of the three in the very beginning that discovered the underground aquifers in San Bernardino.
So you used the divining rod and the whole bit, huh?
Yes, sir. Yes.
Excellent.
And they came from Oklahoma, and it just goes to show you, you never know. You just never know. And but I think we came back to, oh yeah, we had to go to grandma and grandpa's because dad went to Vietnam. Yeah, we moved to Rialto. First we lived with grandma and grandpa, and then mom found a house, and dad was already in Vietnam during that time. And he did two tours there. And I went to San Bernardino High School and Eisenhower High School when we moved into our house. And wow. And Cal State San Bernardino, when it was fledgling, I went there my senior year in high school.
Okay.
To work on my master's thesis in psychology. So.
Okay. Did you pursue that?
Pursue. What do you mean pursue?
Yes,
I got my master's, and yes, I know. I never hung a shingle, but I work with the probation department, young people in Orange County.
I was going to say, if nothing else, that really qualifies you to have your own band.
Yeah, I know, huh? I know. Oh gosh, I know that's right.
I'm being serious.
No, I know that's right. You have to be. I never wanted to be a band leader, but once I became one, I was blessed when I moved to. You know, I just hung around with the cats. I was the editor before I got married. That was in the early 70s. I was the editor for the Dixieland Jazz newsletter that I started actually because I was with the Dixieland Cats from everywhere. You know, I mean, there were bebop cats who were playing Dixieland because it's so intricate. It's so intricate, and it gave you a chance. It gave you a chance to put your voice into the whole song so that everybody was talking at the same time, but everybody was on the same subject. So it gave a lot of older players were mentoring a lot of younger players and teaching them how to solo and listen to how to, you cannot play piano, vocal, however you're doing it. You cannot play a solo in a Dixieland setting without having a conversation. You know, that whole song, you can come together in unison on something, but when you break out, you're having a whole conversation. It's about the same subject, but everybody's talking at once, and the audience, the listener, can choose what they can pick and choose what they want to hear. They can hear that bone line, they can hear, a little reed line. It was great. So when I finished high school and started at UC Irvine, I already had a really good idea on how this was all supposed to go. and I was leaps and bounds ahead because I had traveled. I'd been exposed to other cultures and other food, okay, uh, and other food for the soul, because everybody doesn't hear it the same, right? So when I finally did form my band, um, it was Earl Palmer. Do you know who that is?
Sure.
Earl Palmer, the drummer, who was fascinated by the fact that I had all of this stuff in my head. And he didn't have to tell me very much. He just protected me from wolves. And my bass player was a young man named Michael Sochet, who was like the playingest bass player I had ever heard in my life. And I've been around some great ones. But he was so melodic with the bass. No horn player, just the three of us doing our thing, doing our thing. Of course, the band grew, and I hired a young horn player, who you have to hear, named he's not young anymore. He's all grown up. Oh, my baby. Andrew Carney. Oh my. And he took the horn and made it a voice. He made it a voice. He could match the sound of because I'm a horn person in my head. I'm a horn in my head.
And he's a vocalist in his head.
Huh?
And he's a vocalist in his head.
Yeah. Yeah, but he never opens his mouth to sing. Okay. Right. My horn thing was because of the big band exposure early on, because I love those shouts and those tied 16ths. I love that stuff. Okay. So that's where
Sinatra said he got his phrasing, was by listening to Dorsey.
Right. That's right. Oh, old movies. I lived and died by those old musicals and movies about musicians and beautiful evening gowns and those songs. And it's still pitiful because I could watch it and do nothing. I could eat popcorn, heat up.
Which one's your favorite? Which one of those movies is your favorite?
Wait a minute. I never thought, I've never been asked that. I loved,
I always got a kick out of the Glenn Miller one with Jimmy Stewart.
Oh, yeah, that's a good one, huh?
Yeah.
I liked, what was the name of that movie? The Man and His Horn?
Oh, yeah, with the Kirk Douglas.
Love that movie. Cry. Get him. Not his mouth. Don't hit him in the mouth. Yeah. Oh, wow. Yeah. Any kind of tap dancing, couldn't dance a lick. Didn't dance any tap dancing until my sophomore year in college. And then I was in cabaret, and I practiced 5 hours a day. I would practice going to class and coming from class. I practiced until I could tap dance. And it was only 2 steps, for God's sake. But I needed to be good because I was the only singer in the line. The rest were dancers.
Oh, my.
So I had to be.
Were you doing the Fanny Rose part? Were you doing the lead?
No, I auditioned for the lead for Sally Bowles, and I was at UC Irvine, so they weren't actually. The theater department was real excited, because it would give another dimension. But the alumni association said no. No. So in protest, the wardrobe department dyed all of the Kit Kat girls' wigs pink.
Was it an all-girl band?
For the Kit Kat girls?
Yeah, because a lot of productions I played, there were guys up there with 5 o'clock shadows and stuff.
Yeah, there were guys. Yeah, no, it was all guy. It was an all guy band. We didn't have a lot of musicians. It wasn't a girly thing to do horn and all of that stuff. So I was a vocal major. I strayed as far away from the piano as I could because I had enough lessons and I didn't want to be locked in a practice room for hours and hours a day. So I did vocals only. And I did vocals on, yeah, no, the band was all boys. The band was all boys, and there were 7 Kit Kat girls, and we were dressed. They made sure the colors of the costumes were even right to accommodate me. So no, I got to be an understudy, but I never got to perform Sally Bowles.
You kind of had an advantage on some of the people because you already versed in German. And
I know, and I was and at that time, even though I didn't have a whole lot of people to speak to, I was fluent, in that language because I'd lived there for a long time. But that was irrelevant, so.
it must drive you crazy listening to some people going, welcome and bienvenue. So anyway.
Actually, the guy who did that part, he was multilingual.
Oh, good.
He was also a military child. So, no child, we weren't children, we were young people. And he had lived all over the world. So he was not interested, and he was a Broadway junkie.
Ah.
So he had watched Joel Grey a million, he wanted to do it correctly, all the way down the line. I've been fortunate because I've been around people, musicians, stars that want to deliver the best product of their ability, and sometimes beyond their ability, which there's divine intervention in some places.
Oh yeah.
I'm a stickler for it. I don't like to put anything out, especially in these days, because you weren't feeling well that day, because it's in perpetuity. It's there forever.
Yep.
And never mind somebody heard you, but it's like this interview. Somebody's gonna look at me and go, Eve, you were all over the place. Yeah, what of it?
Hey, you and I are you're not anywhere close as ADD as I am. So we're a good team.
Yay!
Yay.
Ooh. This is my 3rd cup of coffee. Anything could happen now.
So what got you to Palm Springs?
Oh, so Prince is my manager, Prince Moore. And we decided on a Sunday afternoon, let's go out to Palm Springs. What for? Doing a jazz festival out there. Let's go out to Palm Springs. Okay. So we get in the car, come out to Palm Springs, and the festival's right here up the street at the Riviera. We don't have
I played it many times.
We don't have any tickets. We got this much money, gas, and maybe Jack in the Box. Okay, but mostly Wiener Schnitzel, where you can get a bunch of stuff for
yeah.
And we go in, and Chet Yeager sees us. Come over. Hey, Eve, hey, you want to sing a song? Sure. So Chet ushers it, they put their guest badges on us and sing a couple songs, Eve. Okay. So I sing a couple songs with Chet Yeager's band. We got guest badges here. You want them back? No. Go ahead. We're not using them. Go ahead. So we go around and we go around and we go around and we see Chicago 6. And I really want to see them because they're not Dixieland. I want to see how'd they get in, you know? So I see them, great band, great band. Hi, Eve. You know, these people know me kind of from LA, from the LA festival and stuff. Come sing a couple tunes, okay. And you know, the rest of the band's going, oh man, oh. So I sang something. Oh, I think I sang Just a Closer Walk with Thee. And the reed player, Bobby, can't remember his name now.
Bobby Gordon.
Gordon. He looks over at me in the middle of the song and he gives me the nod. I'll never forget the nod. And I thought, well, I'm just going to go ahead and sing because this will be the last time. He played a solo that was burning. And then we were done. And I said, thank you very much. And I got off stage. No, come back. I played every set with them for the rest of the day. All right. And the guys weren't mad. You know, they weren't spitting. They weren't spitting. They weren't calling me names behind my back. They were just, you know, what do you want to do now? What do you want to do now? So eventually I went to be with that band. A little bit. But, you know, a couple of years later, because it wasn't immediate, okay? Then I went down to see Della Reese perform at this nightclub in Cathedral City. And she was all that. She was all that I remembered, okay? And her booking agent, somebody says, well, she sings. And Della said, here, take her cassette. He listened to it on the way home. I got a call in the middle of the night. I'm going to book you. Okay, who's this? I worked for him for about, I don't know, 8 months or so. And another musician down here, Andy Fraga, saw me and he said, I have something else I have to do. I want you to come and sub for me, ready, at the La Quinta Arts Festival. Okay. So I called the band, let's go. And we went and performed at the La Quinta Arts Festival. And that was sponsored by Mike Douglas. That was, yeah. And I went down there and we were down there for the duration for years and years. And a big draw. From that, of course, came the La Quinta Hotel and then the Ritz-Carlton and various country clubs that will go unnamed because I would have to mortgage my house, my car, 2 of my grandchildren, and probably give blood, 2 after I said it. And now I've been blessed to have a good reputation here. I've been blessed to be called for many, many special events. And I've called this my home base for a long, long time.
Yeah.
Simply because I wake up every morning in paradise. There are people here who respect my work and they respect me. And when I leave to go off on a ship or to go on the road for any kind of event, I can always come home. Can always come home. I have never had to come back to no job. It seems like I always have a job. So, it's a blessing. It's a blessing.
If you don't mind, I want to tell you a quick Bob Finch story.
Uh-oh.
That'll lead to something I want to say about y'all. And that is one, I think it was up in Mammoth Lakes or somewhere. But I walked into a tent where Bob was supposed to be playing, and he was sitting on the edge of the stage and his whole band was set up except for him. And I had my tuba on my shoulder,
Yeah.
and he looks at me and he says, "Dan, you want to play?" I went, "Well, what, with Chicago 6?" He goes, "Yeah, you want to play or not?" I said, "Sure." I got my horn, I got up on stage. Then he stood up and made the whole audience stand up, raised their right hand, and promised not to tell anybody that a tuba player had played with Chicago 6. But his bass got lost on the airlines.
What year was that?
I don't remember. Were you there for that?
I think so.
Brad Rolfe and I were walking by the tent, and I hear over the PA, "Dan Zeilinger, come up here."
Yes, I was there. I was there. You know where he flew from, right?
No.
San Diego.
But that brings me to the fact that I was always a little bit brokenhearted that you didn't use tuba players, because I would sit in your audiences and watch you guys perform, wishing I could play with you sometime. But that's another story.
It wasn't. It was. If it had been my call, we would have had a tuba player. Bob, in the later years, it got really difficult for him. When you were talking about sitting on the edge of the stage, we were in, before he got very sick, we were on stage, and Bob wasn't doing well. He didn't look right to me. And so I came out, just about everybody in the band played bass. So I can't remember who took over the bass. Probably the bone player took over the bass and played bass. And I made Bob sit on the edge of the stage, with his legs dangling down. And when he looked up at me, I go, no. Well, we got an inordinate amount of mail because I was mean to my husband. They thought Bob and I were married. And I wrote them back. It was a couple long time Chicago 6, and I wrote them back. I'm sorry that you were offended. That I didn't know my place as a wife, but I am only his band wife. And actually I'm his band nurse, and he was oxygen deprived, so it was important that he sat down, and I'm sorry you misunderstood, but it's part of our shtick. If anybody gets married, we make a joke and make them sit down because they don't want to leave the stage. There's something about being sick and playing music when producers see that you are a little bit sick, you might not get called for the next gig. So,
right. Oh, absolutely.
So it's important that be covered and understood by the rest of the band, that if an ambulance has to take you away, which one has had to take me away on occasion when I fell off the stage in Sun Valley. Did you hear about that?
I might have been there. What year was that?
Oh, please. I can't remember last week.
Okay, we're in the same boat then. I'm not going to push it. But yeah, I did Sun Valley quite a few times.
Yeah, I stepped in the photographer pit in the dark and broke my leg and my arm,
Ouch.
And as they put me on the stretcher, I had to say, I meant to do that,
Right. Always on stage, yeah.
And I stayed for the balance of the festival to let people know that I was all, that I was okay, and it would, everything would be all right. So, I get that.
The musicians that are watching this that knew Bob would understand. I happened to be in line at the airport at one point in time, and he was in the line next to me. He had just walked up to the representative of the airlines, and I hear the representative say, "Could I see your ID, sir?" And next to him, I said, "Bob, just pull out a $5 bill."
Ooh. What did the guy at the desk do?
Oh, he just didn't quite get it until he looked at the $5 bill and realized that Bob looked like Abraham Lincoln. You know?
Just like him. Well, actually, Abraham looked a little bit better than Bob. Bob looked like he had been exhumed.
That's true. He had those sunken cheeks.
He was funny. He used that for a long time. That was part of our, that was part of our shtick without saying it, because that's the beauty of it. You don't say it, but you look at that picture and go, oh man, ooh. So, but he was one of the funniest human beings on earth. He was
a great guy. Just a really good person, you know.
He was okay. I mean, I wouldn't go overboard. With...
Well, that's one thing about our style of music. You find out that 99.9% of the people associated with it are just good people. I mean, and I don't think I'm speaking out of the school here. I've played rock bands, I played Latin bands, I played big bands, and the percentages are way up with early jazz, you know?
Yes. No joke. Well, that's because, it's because jazz comes from gospel.
Ooh, snuck that one in there on me. I didn't see that coming.
Yeah, don't get me started.
Well, listen, this has been a lot of fun. I'm going to give you some time here. If there's anything you want to plug, have you got product for sale somewhere? You have CDs?
Of course, you can look at me on YouTube in my various stages of hairdo, and and musical prowess. Of course, you can go to what is that place that sell? Oh, iTunes. You can go there and find me, and Spotify. I'm around. There's a new project coming up. It'll be out in the spring, and it's all new material with great melodies and great lyrics. And I'm hoping that I can release one by one with pictures. Oh, I'm doing a one-woman show in the fall. And it's about my life, but it's called Everything You Wanted to Know, but We're Afraid to Ask. I will not be pole dancing anymore. So.
Oh, darn.
Yeah, I'm taking that down, because that was my old body. The new body's not getting it off. Yes, I do. You can just like this program. Oh, for those of you out there who don't have a clue, this show has great interviews. It's stuff that we wouldn't tell normally. Okay, you've learned more about me than my parents knew about me. Okay, today, and you need to subscribe. He needs a whole bunch of subscribers to keep this going, because we're jazz musicians. Yes, we're untouchable. Yes, we have big heads. Some of us are divas, but we really do love you, and we really want you to know us, so you'll know why we do what we do. So I'm plugging him. Okay, and at the same time, I'm wishing you all good music and protection and great health. And listen to the guy. He's from the South Pacific. He might know a little bit more than we do. It's the water there, that makes it right. Anything else? Oh, going on a cruise ship in October. Yes, I'm going on a cruise ship. We're leaving from New York, and we're going to go look at the leaves turn whatever color they're going to turn. And I'll be doing my one-woman show there.
Oh, neat.
Let's see. We might get together, a whole bunch of us. I don't want to say any names, but Danny Coots and Eddie Metz and a few bass players and a horn player or two. I won't mention any names, you know who. And we're going to get together and do something really stupid to to raise money for jazz musicians who have fallen in the hole during this time. So stay tuned and stay tuned here. Oh, don't forget, this young man's what's that radio show you're gonna be doing?
It'll be Syncopated Times.
Yeah, he's gonna do I'm gonna get on that show too. Okay. And I probably will have some lies made up by then that, that you can use against me later on.
Well, thank you so much for the plug, Eve. I've never been called a diva before.
Oh, geez, he's gone too far.
It's been such a joy. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you.
The pleasure has been mine. It's been my pleasure to be your pleasure.
Thank you. Bye-bye, ma'am.
Bye, sweetie.
Thank you for watching Trad Jazz Today. Dan posts new interviews every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Make sure to check out the archive of past shows, and please give us a thumbs up when you subscribe to the channel. Bye.